Hello my friends, welcome back to Relaxing Ang Stories. I am so happy you chose to spend this time with me today. Take a slow breath in, let your body relax, and let this story carry you back across time to a small village in the south of the Netherlands, in the year 1860, where a quiet boy is walking alone through a field, not laughing with friends, not playing games, just walking, looking at the grass, looking at the birds, looking at the way the light fell on the wheat. Because this story begins, not in a studio, but in a field. Not with talent, but with loneliness. Not with success, but with failure. Again, and again, and again. And the boy walking through that field will grow up to create some of the most beloved paintings the world has ever known. He will sell almost nothing while he is alive. He will be called a madman. And only after he is gone will the world finally call him a genius. But first, let me tell you about the village. Imagine a boy, maybe 7 years old, son of a quiet country pastor. The house is modest. The church bell rings every Sunday. The family is respectable, religious, careful. But the boy is different. He does not run with the other children. He does not laugh easily. He wanders. He watches insects. He collects leaves and presses them into books. He draws, constantly in the margins of his school papers. His mother loved nature, drawing, and watercolors, and that love passed to her son. There is something else, something the family rarely speaks of. Exactly 1 year before this boy was born, his mother had given birth to another son, also named Vincent. That baby did not survive. And so, when our boy is born, he is given the same name. The same birthday almost, on the calendar. He will grow up walking past a small gravestone in the churchyard, with his own name carved into the stone, belonging to a brother he never met. Imagine carrying that, a name that already had a grave. His name is Vincent van Gogh, and in that quiet village, walking past that stone, something in him began. A heaviness, a searching, a need. To prove that this Vincent, the living one, mattered. Stay with me. Because this is a story about what happens when a man tries everything, fails at everything, and finally finds the one thing he was born to do. Vincent van Gogh was born on the 30th of March, 1853, in Groot Zundert, in the southern Netherlands. His father, Theodorus, was a strict country minister. His mother, Anna, was a moody, artistic woman who loved nature and watercolors. At 16, Vincent left school and went to work for an art-dealing firm. Not as an artist. As a salesman, he sold other people's paintings, in galleries, to wealthy buyers. He was sent to London. He was sent to Paris. Daily contact with great art slowly stirred something in him. He began to love Rembrandt. He began to love painters who showed ordinary, working people with dignity. But something was going wrong inside him. In London, he fell in love with his landlady's daughter. He proposed. She said no. He was devastated. He grew strange, withdrawn, intense. He began to despise the art trade he worked in. He told customers, openly, not to buy paintings he thought were worthless. His employers fired him. He tried teaching. That failed too. He tried working in a bookshop. That failed. He decided, with sudden, burning conviction, that his true calling was God. He studied for the ministry. He failed the entrance exams. He refused to study Latin, calling it a dead language for the poor. The church turned him away again. He would not give up. He found one place that would take him. The Borinage, a coal mining region in Belgium, one of the poorest, most brutal places in Europe. He went there to preach to miners who descended every day into the dark, and who sometimes did not come back up. And there Vincent did something almost no one expected. He gave away everything. In an impassioned moment, he gave away all his worldly goods to live exactly as the poor people around him lived. He slept on straw. He wore rags. He shared his food until he had none left. The church authorities were horrified. This was not what a respectable preacher did. He was dismissed for taking his Christian faith too literally. He later told a friend, "They think I'm a madman because I wanted to be a true Christian. They turned me out like a dog, saying that I was causing a scandal." Imagine that moment. 26 years old. No job. No faith left in the church. No money. No prospects. A man who had failed at selling art, at teaching, at preaching. A man his own family had begun to quietly worry about. And it was exactly there, in the deepest failure of his life, that Vincent began to draw seriously and discovered, in 1880, his true vocation. He picked up a pencil, not as a hobby, but as a mission. He decided his calling now was to bring comfort to humanity through art, telling his brother, "I want to give the wretched a brotherly message." He had failed at being a man of God in church, so he decided he would be one with a paintbrush instead. Now I must tell you about Theo. Vincent had a younger brother, Theo van Gogh, who worked as an art dealer in Paris. And from this point on, almost until the end of Vincent's life, Theo became something extraordinary. Not just a brother. A lifeline. Theo sent him money every single month for years. Money for food, money for rent, money for paint and canvas and brushes. Vincent rarely had enough to eat properly, but he almost always had paint. He wrote Theo letters, hundreds of them, long, beautiful, aching letters, describing the colors of a wheat field, the loneliness of a Sunday evening, the ache of wanting to be loved and not knowing how to be loved back. Those letters survive today. Historians say they are some of the most powerful writing by any artist in history. Theo never once asked for the money back. Vincent began as a self-taught artist, drawing peasants, weavers, miners, people with rough hands and tired faces. His early work was dark, heavy, and somber. The most famous piece from this period being a painting called The Potato Eaters, finished in 1885. It showed a poor family, gathered around a single dim lamp, eating potatoes in near darkness. It was not beautiful in the way people expected paintings to be beautiful. It was honest. It was human. Almost no one wanted to buy it. In 1886, Vincent moved to Paris to live with Theo. And Paris changed everything. Theo introduced him to a circle of radical young painters, Camille Pissarro, Edgar Degas, and others who were breaking every rule the art world had ever followed. These were the Impressionists. They painted with color, not careful outlines. They painted light itself, shifting, changing, alive. Vincent watched them. Vincent studied them, and slowly, under their influence, he brightened his dark, heavy palette and began placing vivid opposite colors side by side for a glowing, electric effect. The dark farmer's son from Holland was becoming someone else. But Paris exhausted him. He found the city physically draining, and in early 1888 he moved south to a small town called Arles, hoping the warm light of Provence would heal him and inspire his art. And there, under that blazing southern sun, Vincent exploded into color. He painted sunflowers again and again in jars of golden yellow. He painted wheat fields under burning skies. He painted his own small bedroom in thick, joyful, tilted color. He worked feverishly with intense, energetic brushwork and saturated colors, his canvases pulsing with a kind of spiritual power he believed lived inside nature itself. He dreamed of something more than just painting alone. He dreamed of a community. He rented 4 rooms in a house he painted bright yellow, hoping to build an artist's colony there, a gathering place for like-minded painters. He invited friends. Almost no one came, except one man. In October of 1888, the painter Paul Gauguin finally agreed to move into the yellow house with him. Vincent was overjoyed. For the first time in years, he would not be painting alone. At first, it was wonderful. The 2 men painted side by side, even tackling the same scenes, like the famous night calf. But Vincent's temperament was intense, consuming, sometimes frightening. His nervous energy made him a difficult companion, and the long nights of arguing, combined with painting all day, wore down his health. By December, the friendship was breaking apart. On the 23rd of December, 1888, after what was likely a furious argument between the two men, Vincent severed a portion of his own left ear. It is one of the most famous, most painful moments in the history of art. A man in such anguish, in such a storm inside his own mind, that he turned violence against himself. Doctors diagnosed an acute breakdown, and within days, Vincent was placed under medical care. Gauguin left for Paris and never returned. Vincent kept asking for him, again and again, not understanding he was gone. This was the beginning of a long, dark chapter. In May of 1889, Vincent voluntarily admitted himself to an asylum in the town of St. Army. He was not forced there. He chose to go. He understood, in his clearer moments, that something inside him was breaking, and he wanted help. And here is the part of the story that I find almost unbearable in its beauty. Inside that asylum, in a small room, with a barred window, struggling against his own mind, Vincent kept painting. In June of 1889, looking out from his room at St. Army, he painted one of the most famous works in the entire history of art, the Starry Night. Swirling skies, glowing stars, a quiet village sleeping beneath them. A man at the edge of his own sanity looked up at the night and found, somehow, peace enough to paint something that has now hung in galleries, on coffee mugs, on bedroom walls, in the hearts of millions of people, for more than a century. He did not know, when he painted it, that anyone would ever care. In May of 1890, Vincent left the asylum. He traveled to a small village near Paris, called Auvers-sur-Oise, to be near Theo again, placing himself under the care of a doctor named Paul Gachet. For a while, it seemed like he might be all right. He wrote to his mother and sister that the restlessness in his head had greatly quieted down. He spent his days painting the fields and plains around the village, and by July was producing brilliant, glowing landscapes. But underneath, something was still fragile. On the evening of Sunday, the 27th of July, 1890, Vincent walked out into the fields, carrying his easel and his painting materials, as he had done 1,000 times before. He did not come back the way he usually did. He had shot himself in the chest. He survived the wound for 2 days, with Theo rushing to his side. On the 29th of July, 1890, Vincent van Gogh died. He was 37 years old. In his short 10-year career as an artist, he had created an almost unbelievable amount of work. Around 900 paintings and over 1,000 drawings. Some accounts count over 2,000 artworks in total, including roughly 860 oil paintings. And in all that time in his entire life, he sold almost nothing. One painting, perhaps two, depending on which historian you ask. One single painting, sold for a small sum to a friend of the family. That was it. That was the financial sum total of one of the greatest artistic careers in human history. He lived on his brother's money. He often went without food, so he could afford paint instead. He believed, his whole life, that he was a failure. A burden. A man the world did not want. Theo, his great supporter, his believer, did not live long after him. Heartbroken, and already suffering from his own illness, Theo died just 6 months later. The two brothers, who had written each other hundreds of letters about color and light and pain and hope, were eventually buried side by side. But here is where the story turns. Here is the part that still gives me chills, every single time I tell it. After Vincent died, Theo's widow, a woman named Johanna, took something that almost no one else would have bothered to keep. She held on to Vincent's letters, hundreds of them, and worked for years to have them published and his paintings shown to the world. Slowly, quietly, the world began to look again. His fame first rose sharply in Austria and Germany, helped along by the publication of his letters in 3 volumes in 1914. Critics who had ignored him began to write about him. Collectors who had never heard his name began to seek out his work. Today, his paintings are among the most expensive and most beloved in the entire world. His painting Irises sold for $53.9 million. His portrait of Dr. Gachet sold for $82.5 million. Millions of people every year stand in front of his sunflowers, his starry sky, his small yellow bedroom, and feel something they cannot quite put into words. The man, who could not sell a single painting to feed himself, is now one of the most valuable artists who has ever lived. He never knew, not one single day of that recognition reached him while he was alive. And so, my friend, the story of the quiet boy who walked alone through the fields of Holland comes softly to its close. Vincent van Gogh failed. Over and over. He failed as a salesman. He failed as a teacher. He failed as a preacher. He failed, by every measure the world used at the time. As an artist, too. Because no one was buying what he made. But he never stopped making it. He painted through poverty. He painted through heartbreak. He painted through episodes of his mind turning against him, in ways that frightened even himself. He painted in a small rented room, with a barred window, looking up at a sky full of stars, and he turned his pain into something the whole world now holds, gently, in its memory. He was not a simple man. He was not an easy man. He struggled his whole life to be loved and to love well. He hurt himself in ways that still ache, more than a century later when we hear the story. But he kept going, letter after letter, canvas after canvas, even when no one was watching. Even when no one believed in him, except one brother, in Paris, who quietly kept sending money, and never once gave up on him. That is the heart of this story. And you, my friend, you are doing something similar right now. You are sitting here, learning a new language, one word at a time, and maybe, some days, it feels like no one is watching. Maybe it feels slow. Maybe it feels like nobody will ever see how hard you are working. But every sentence you understand, every story you follow to the end, every small piece of progress that nobody applauds, that is your wheat field. That is your starry night. Small, quiet, building, brushstroke by brushstroke, into something whole. Vincent van Gogh did not become the world's greatest painter in his own lifetime. He became it slowly after, through patience, through letters, through people who believed in him even when the world did not. You have your canvas. You have your brush. You have this story. That is enough to begin. Keep listening, keep learning, keep moving forward. This is Relaxing Yang Stories. Tell me, my friend, what part of Vincent's story stayed with you? Was it the grave with his own name on it, in the village churchyard? Was it the brother Theo, who never stopped believing in him? Or was it the night, in a small room with a barred window, when he looked up at the stars, and painted something the whole world would one day love? Leave a comment below. I read every single one. There are many more stories waiting here, and I will be ready when you come back. Until next time, take care of yourself, and never ever stop moving forward.